I was halfway through my thesis defense when Professor Lane interrupted me, again. He smiled that tight, practiced smile and said, "You're explaining it wrong, Maya. Let me handle it." He turned toward the panel, clicking through my slides, my data, my algorithm, like he'd built it himself. The committee nodded. Impressed. I stood there, frozen. The same man who'd told me I wasn't ready had just stolen the work I'd bled for. That's when I decided. He wasn't ready either. Professor Lane had been my advisor for 2 years. Charming, brilliant, manipulative. The kind of man who made you feel lucky just to be noticed by him. When I first joined his lab, he called me his prodigy. Said I saw patterns others missed. I believed him. Believed every late-night email, every red mark correction on my drafts, every compliment dressed like mentorship. Then the small things started. My name disappearing from draft versions. Citations rearranged. Figures uploaded to his shared drive without credit. When I asked, he said, "You're part of the team, Maya. We all contribute." Except the team didn't stay up 38 hours debugging his neural net. The team didn't write the code that made the prediction model viable. That was me. All me. By the time I realized what he was doing, it was too late. My research, my future, was already branded with his initials. And when I tried to bring it up, he smiled like a parent catching a child lying. "You're emotional," he said. "Careful, that kind of attitude ruins careers." So I smiled back. Apologized. Acted small. But that night, I stopped sleeping. I started planning. Because if he wanted credit for my work, he was going to get it. All of it. The untested module. The corrupted data. The flaw he told me to ignore. It wasn't sabotage. Not exactly. It was truth just revealed at the right moment. Lane had one obsession: reputation. He craved admiration the way most people crave oxygen. Every grant, every citation, every conference introduction that began with the renowned Dr. Lane. It fed him. And he'd built his career on other people's quiet exhaustion. Students burned out, moved on, disappeared into anonymity. He'd picked the wrong one this time. The week after my defense, he submitted our paper, without my name, to the International Symposium on Artificial Cognition. The acceptance email came 3 weeks later, and he forwarded it to the lab group like a proud father announcing a birth. "We did it," he wrote. But we meant him. It always did. He booked flights, prepared his keynote, even bragged to the dean. I played along. Congratulated him. Helped him polish his slides. I wanted him to be comfortable. Confident. Certain he'd won. Meanwhile, I'd been busy. Remember the untested module he told me to skip? I'd left a quiet trap in it. A dataset designed to mimic success under specific test parameters. It looked perfect in the lab. But once exposed to live inputs, it fractured. Logic loops, inconsistencies, failures cascading into nonsense. The kind of flaw that didn't just ruin a demo, it embarrassed you. Publicly. Irreversibly. But I didn't want him humiliated too soon. I wanted it recorded. Broadcasted. Immortalized. So I reached out to a friend in the symposium's tech committee. Sent him a concerned researcher email from a throwaway account. Explained that Dr. Lane's model used an unverified dataset and might pose replicability issues. He promised to have the session streamed and archived for peer transparency. Perfect. When Lane left for the conference, I stayed behind to cover the lab. In truth, I was watching the live feed. It started beautifully. He opened with charm, spoke about innovation, about mentorship, about his team. The audience adored him. Then he ran the live demo. And I saw it happen. The subtle flicker of confusion in his eyes when the predictions began to misfire. The audience leaning forward. The whispers. The tightening of his jaw. Then it crashed. Completely. The moderator tried to move things along, but Lane kept clicking, desperate, sweat beading on his forehead. The same man who had once told me, "Confidence is everything," now stood speechless in front of hundreds. When the stream ended, I didn't feel joy. Not yet. Just silence. Cold, heavy silence. Then my phone buzzed. A message from him. "What did you do?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. "Exactly what you taught me." And hit send. That was the night his career began to unravel. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Because when a man like Lane falls, he doesn't crumble quietly. He claws. He digs. He tries to drag you down with him. And I was ready for that too. Lane came back from the conference 3 days later, looking like a man who'd aged a decade in a weekend. His confident stride was gone, replaced by something brittle, tight. He didn't speak to anyone. Just shut himself in his office. By noon, the department already knew. Rumors spread fast. His demo crash had gone viral on the symposium archive, replayed and dissected by grad students and rival labs. Lane's model fails live. Data inconsistency in Lane's AI claim. Headlines. Threat. Whispers. When he finally called me in, his voice was sharp, precise. Tell me what you did, he said. No greeting. No small talk. I sat across from him, notebook in my lap. I did what you asked. I followed your version of the code. His eyes narrowed. Don't play dumb, Maya. I didn't. I just tilted my head slightly and said, then maybe you shouldn't have signed off on a module you never reviewed. For a second, I thought he might hit me. His hand twitched. But he didn't. He just leaned back, trying to steady his breathing. You think you've won something here? He said. You won't get far without me. I still control your thesis approval. Your funding. Your reputation. There it was, the threat. The reminder of who held the keys. I smiled faintly. Then you better be careful where you leave your fingerprints, Professor. I wouldn't want anyone thinking you pressured a student into sharing data you didn't have clearance for. That hit him. Hard. Because he had. Months ago, he'd pushed me to integrate a restricted dataset from a private firm without IRB approval. For internal testing, he'd said. I still had the emails. He realized it then, the shift. I wasn't just some emotional student anymore. I was a liability. Over the next week, he tried to fix things. Quietly. Pulled strings with the dean. Whispered to colleagues that I was unstable. That stress had made me paranoid. The usual academic smear campaign. But every rumor he started came back to him like a boomerang. Because I didn't fight in public, I leaked carefully. Strategically. A small data ethics blog got an anonymous tip about his misuse of research datasets. Then a former student posted a thread about his mentorship style. One tweet turned into 10. 10 turned into 100. Suddenly, his name wasn't associated with brilliance. It was associated with abuse of power. He called me again late one night. His voice was quieter this time. You've made your point, he said. Let's move on from this. I looked at my screen for a long time before replying. You're right. We should move on. I already did. Then I hung up. That was the night I finished the corrected version of the paper, my paper, and uploaded it to the university archive with full documentation, timestamps and contributor logs. My name listed first. His name missing entirely. By the time he realized, the committee already had it. The department already had it. And for once in his career, there was nothing he could edit, delete, or explain away. Still, he wasn't done. I could feel it. The quiet before the next move. The way his door stayed closed but the light stayed on. The sound of someone desperate enough to dig through ashes, hoping to find a spark that still obeyed him. He wanted war. And I was done playing defense. The retaliation started small. Subtle. My lab access was temporarily revoked for security review. My stipend payments were delayed due to system errors. My emails to the department chair mysteriously went unanswered. Lane was pulling strings again. Not through confrontation, but through quiet obstruction. Death by bureaucracy. It would have scared anyone else. But by then, I'd already stopped being afraid. He underestimated how much I'd prepared for this. I had everything documented. Every message, every redline edit, every timestamp proving which parts of the project were mine. Months earlier, I'd started backing up all communications off campus, encrypted with third-party verification logs. And I'd learned something about the university system. It feared scandal more than it feared injustice. So I gave it one. I filed an official grievance, not for authorship theft, but for data ethics violations. That wording mattered. It triggered a compliance audit. When the investigators arrived, Lane smiled and called it a misunderstanding. But the moment they asked for dataset access permissions, that smile faltered. He couldn't produce them, because they didn't exist. Within a week, his name was quietly removed from 3 grant proposals. The department went from defending him to reviewing the matter internally. The man who once walked the halls like he owned them now avoided eye contact. Still, he tried one last move. A letter. To the dean. Accusing me of misconduct. Fabricated data, manipulation, professional misconduct. A mirror accusation. Clever in its own cowardly way. But here's the problem with men like him. They assume everyone else plays by their rules. They think power protects them. It doesn't. Paper trails do. So when the dean called me in, I didn't defend myself. I handed over a flash drive. Inside were the original project logs, server backups, and a folder labeled proof. It contained our shared email chain, his instructions, my objections, his pressure to bypass protocol. When the dean finished reading, she didn't look up for a full minute. Then she said quietly, "You need to leave this office and say nothing. We'll handle the rest." And I did. That night, I walked past Lane's office for the last time. The blinds were open. He was sitting alone in the dark, phone pressed to his ear, voice cracking with the kind of desperation that used to belong to his students. He saw me through the glass. For a second, neither of us moved. Then I smiled, just slightly, and kept walking. 2 days later, an internal memo went out. Dr. Thomas Lane placed on administrative leave pending investigation. No explanation. No farewell email. Just absence. In academia, silence is the loudest punishment of all. I should have felt triumphant, but I didn't. Revenge doesn't feel like fireworks, it feels like balance. Like a door closing after months of wind howling through it. He took my work, my credit, my confidence. I took his illusion of control. And in the end, that was the only thing he ever truly valued. When the semester ended, I packed my things. My name was already listed on the conference site for next year. Lead author, invited speaker. And his name? Nowhere. He taught me one lesson better than any other. That power borrowed from someone else can be taken back. But power earned quietly, that stays. The investigation wrapped up midsummer. The official report never went public, but I didn't need to see it to know. Lane's name vanished from the faculty directory one morning, just like that. Deleted like a bad variable in clean code. The hallway outside his office stayed empty for weeks. No one said his name, but everyone walked quieter near that door. I thought I'd feel free. Instead, I felt hollow. Because revenge doesn't restore what was taken. It just makes the silence bearable. I spent most nights in the lab after that, reworking my research, properly this time. Clean data, clear authorship, my own funding. The work moved slower without the adrenaline of anger, but it was honest. Stable. Meaning. Every once in a while, I'd get an email from a former student of his. Some were scared, others relieved. One wrote, "You did what we all wanted to do." I didn't reply. There wasn't anything to say. The day I presented my paper, at the same symposium where he'd fallen, the room was half full and quiet. No press, no spotlight. Just people who cared about the work. I walked up to the podium, connected the projector, and started speaking. And for the first time in years, no one interrupted me. When the session ended, someone from the audience asked how I stayed motivated through setbacks. I told them the truth. Sometimes being underestimated is the best training you'll ever get. They laughed. I smiled. And that was it. No dramatic. Just peace. On my way out, I passed the big screen showing the next session's list of speakers. My name flashed once, then faded as the next title loaded. Temporary. Replaceable. Like everyone else's. And somehow that felt right. Because revenge wasn't about destroying him anymore. It was about proving, to myself, that I could survive the fire he lit and still come out with something worth keeping. I didn't ruin him. He did that himself. I just made sure everyone finally saw it. The funny thing about power is that it always looks solid, until you touch it and realize it's just fear in disguise. And fear burns fast.